oftentimes I always like to start just learning more about like how was your childhood, how did where you grew up, and basically the beginning of of your journey. How was Gabriel as a kid?
Cool. That's awesome. Gabriel was uh, the kid that was when people would ask me what I wanted to be was always the inventor. I always said like, oh, I'm going to be not exactly a scientist, but someone that was going to come up with something. Right? Because like every time we had we meet the cousins or the siblings or like on any group trying to come up with what you're going to play or what you're going to do, like always like coming up with what would be the game and coming up with a different game or coming up with a different something to do. And I always had like boxes and boxes of Lego and all these other kits to build stuff. So I always said that I was going wanted to build something. Was an inventor. So my family thought I was going to either be a physicist or engineering or something like that. And that's what I believed for the longest time, that was going to be maybe do an engineering and then build machines. What happened is that once I've got an experience with software and I realized that you could build stuff on the virtual world. It sounded a lot easier to experiment and try different things, to build something virtual than actually having to build a factory. Probably I still have a lot of fun and like building physical things when I have a chance. Like I build the furniture for my previous apartment, and I build toys for my kids, and I still like using hands to build stuff. But it felt that building digital products would be easier to experiment, and I end up like deciding to go that path. Um, I thought it was maybe a smaller barrier for competition in building software than in building hardware, or right. Like, I think it's more of a playing field. Everybody start if you want to compete in building a software, everybody has to get the same like laptop, and you have access to like cloud resources and stuff, and you can be as creative as anyone else. Maybe if you're building something physical, you don't have the lab, or you don't have this, or you don't have the equipment, or you don't have the material. So that's what I liked about building software. But
That's
yeah, so
great. Well,
that was me as a kid.
and I think it also runs in the family. Having had the privilege of spending time with your family, and tasting your dad's beer, I can see that that he's also, aside from him having an excellent music taste as well. You know, just he makes great beer. So was it always like that with your father? What was your relationship with him, and was he always building things around the house? I know that when you got into college, right, you started actually working for his company, and then that's was basically your first more formal entrepreneurial role, of sorts.
Yeah, so I think from the very early days, I've my father. We have we are from a family of entrepreneurs. Like my grandfather, I think probably was my very first inspiration, and he had an interesting story. Like he came as a small child from Europe just before the war. They didn't like what was going on in Germany. So it was a family of Germans that were living in Siberia. They had to run away from Germany and were all going to US. But my great grandmother couldn't board the ship to US because there was a medical exam and she failed because of some infection in her eyes. And then she tried. They said like, okay, we are in the port. We're not going home. Let's find the next ship that doesn't have a medical exam. And then they found a ship that was going to Brazil, right? And then
No
they say
COVID
like,
test
ah,
on the ship. No, just
no,
kidding.
there was no exams whatsoever. Everybody welcome. So that's how they ended up in Brazil. It was a coincidence that it was the only ship that didn't have medical exam, and then they came on board. But anyway, so he came early. Was a very humble family. He uh, got into a course to be a mechanical, not a mechanical engineer. Was like operator of of a specific machine, say tornero mecânico.
How do you say that
Trying
in
to remember
English?
what is the translation for that thing
Well,
that it spins a piece of
a metal, yeah,
metal,
just to work
and
on the assembly
you
line
curve
of
out.
like
Yeah,
factories and so forth. Yes.
which for them was like this massive upgrade, right? Was this really, wow, he's gonna be the first in the family that actually like has some sort of education and is working on a factory, so he was going to be able to help his whole family. They were all looking forward for it. So he joins the company, and then at the same day or like the same week, an older guy is retiring, like he's leaving and then he asks the guy, so yeah, you're retiring. How is your career? Blah blah blah. So how much money you're making now that you're retiring? And the guy was making like 30% more. So his realization was like, what? So I'm gonna work all my life to maybe move 30% up in the ladder, like to be able to. That's all I'm gonna. That's the spectrum, the range that I'm gonna have to deal. So he quit on the next day. So like, no, this is I cannot handle it. And my great grandfather was not happy about it. So he actually got a good, um, how do you say, like matunda.
A good like moral spanking, I guess.
Well, not as moral, more like proper, like physical.
Oh, physical. I see.
Well, that was
Gotcha. All right.
that was the beginning of the. That was last century, man.
So
So things
exact.
were
Yes. It's a full stack lesson there.
first stack lesson there. But then he went. He said that he waited to. He went to work on a store for car parts. But because he got the promise that he could start with a delivery boy and then working up. So and that's what he did. He started as a delivery boy, did a really good job. Then was like became a salesman and then a manager, and then he was the manager of like the whole sales team. The one guy passed away, left the company, and then he started dealing with the buying, the purchasing department as well. Then I think he became a partner, and like when all this way up like to actually become the bought the store back from the owner, because in some point he was about to leave. So like, okay, there's nowhere to go unless buying. So I'm leaving the store, and the owner said like, okay, no, like I don't want you to go to a competitor or buy start a competition. Like just buy my store and keep it. I don't want to run it without you.
That's great.
So
It's
so
pure
and he
immigrant
loved to
hustle.
tell the story when we were kids, right? And I think maybe I don't know how much fantasy it's around what he was trying to achieve in telling us the story. I think it's probably like 80% true, or 90, because he was a very serious like man. I think that's the kind of story that I've listened when I was growing up. It was about how he had a saying that there's a caveat, but it was he would say, if you work too much, you don't have time to make money. In the sense that if you just have a job that doesn't allow you to think, that if you're just like laboring, right? You can work 8 to 8, like 12 hours a day, and maybe if you're just an assembly line, you're gonna be hard working. Like you're gonna be working your ass out. But it's gonna be very small room for you to improve or thinking about how to really evolve and succeed. So he used to think that any kind of work that you have to do, it needs to be make room for thinking, for you to think about different ways and to evolve. So that's what he meant about like you need, if you don't work too much, that you don't have time to make money.
That's great. Well, I think that that's also. I mean, it goes through that same. So many people have talked about this, but I think that the most modern version of it is probably like how Naval summarized it. Like you can't get rich by selling your time, right?
Yeah.
That ultimately we all have to be owners of a business to a degree, either directly or indirectly, and you need to find leverage in your life.
Yes.
So oftentimes it's only worth selling your time if you're learning something pretty aggressively, and I think both of us have been in that situation. But then,
Yes.
you know,